The Bible talks about fasting often, but it doesn't tell us how we should always do it or for how long, but it does say that Jesus expects it of his children. For he says, when you fast. And when you fast, don't make it obvious as the hypocrites do. Matthew 6:16. Remember, there is a reward from fasting, for it says also in Matthew 6, "But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to men that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." I don't think it's to twist God's arm to do something for us, but rather the disciplining of your bodies, telling the flesh to shut up so that we can hear from God. One of the sins of Sodom was fullness of bread, and you have to admit this generation has the same problem. Our flesh is being pampered all the time and needs to be quietened so that we can hear from God, and fasting helps us to achieve this. This was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. She and her daughter had pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. Ezekiel 16:49. We should always fast expecting to hear from God, for he promises wisdom to those who ask. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. A word of advice: if you are a coffee drinker, then you may have headaches if you stop, so maybe still have a coffee. It's hard to hear from God with a headache and hinders your concentration. If I am really feeling weak, I sometimes have soup in the evening. Fasting will also make you feel cold if it's in the winter. I love going for walks and praying in tongues, so a coffee or something gives me the energy to still do it. I believe that fasting helps us to hear from God, so there needs to be more reading of the Bible and praying instead of eating. If you don't do these two things, you're just dieting. Fasting secular TV is a good way to fast. Remember, you don't always get an answer on the last day of the fast. It can come later when you start feeling better. The fast is like seeds being sown, so believe for a harvest. There is a reward. If you have never fasted before, start small. Maybe miss a meal a day. Then fast for a day until supper time. The next step would be a 3-day fast. It doesn't have to be more than that, but if necessary, then set the goal longer. It's important to journal each day. Often when God is speaking to you, you don't feel like it's Him speaking, but your feelings can be deceptive. Later on you see that it was Him. Keep away from TV ads about mealtime, for there are hundreds of food ads about this time that you've never noticed before. I have communion now when I'm fasting, for there is healing and revelation in the emblems. Look at my message on healing and communion.